けがえのない絆を前に、男は全てをかけて運命に挑んだ。
There was once an element of society called the Yakuza. They too have a family. A family.
It's still a cool moviegram, and today we are going to be reviewing the 2021 film A Family, which is a Japanese crime drama directed by Michihito Fujii. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that name. It stars Ayano as a young man named Kenji, aka Lil Ken, as he's known by his friends. It starts off in 1999, where a young Kenji has actually just lost his father due to a drug habit that forced him to kill himself. Of course, he's like a little, kind of like just a wild, rambunctious teenager who's just going off the rails, no guidance, and somehow he ends up saving a Yakuza boss's life. And the Yakuza boss, played by Hiroshi Tachi, is called Bosh Shibasaki. Ends up taking the young Kenji under his wing. And of course, we see 6 years later, which is in 2005, Kenji has now become a fully fledged Yakuza member, and he's actually just living the life of a mobster. And of course, he's changed his look, his appearance, the way that he walks, but he still seems to have a good heart. He actually attends the diner which he had actually saved the gang boss in. And the gang boss owner's son, who's a young kid named Tsubasa Kimura, he's actually really... he shows a lot of affection towards him. He shows that even though he's a Yakuza, he's actually quite a decent person. So he tells him to listen, make sure you don't turn out like us. And he kind of gives him that whole kind of at least nephew and kind of uncle relationship between the two. But at the same time, he falls for a young club hostess called Yuka. Who's played by Machiko Ono, and they eventually kind of hit off in terms of like their relationship, but gang rivalry with another Yakuza ends up Kenji taking the blame for a murder and is sent to prison for 14 years. So eventually, then you see how Kenji has come out. He's a much older man. He finds out that the Yakuza that he belongs to has actually kind of like a lot of people have left, and there isn't much money coming in, where they're actually resorting to really kind of like low level methods of making money. And even his remaining friend has actually left the Yakuza, is starting to live a normal life. But then he also realizes that when he gets in touch with Yuka, that she has actually got a daughter, which turns out to be his. And that's the whole thing. Is he able to... Can he give the whole life of a gangster up? I mean, but that's just what the film is. And can he live a normal life after going through what he has? Yeah, so I thought this was a really good film. This was just, it took me by surprise. What I really liked about it was the realism that was kind of portrayed in terms of the acting and the performances. They're really strong. I mean, Ayano plays the character of Kenji very convincingly and is very compelling. And you know, you could see that even though he's actually showing this very kind of aggressive, tough exterior, he's actually a very gentle soul from deep down. He's actually got a good heart. And I also thought that the young actor Isomura, who plays the older Tsubasa to Tsubasa Kimura, who's actually just who looks up to Kenji, and he's actually he's kind of involved in gangsters, but he's not a yakuza himself. But you could tell that he's actually quite a conflicted character himself, considering that when he finds out that his father used to be a yakuza member who was actually murdered, and it kind of plays an interesting dynamic. Like, we kind of get to see the three stages. I mean, where the laws were different around the yakuzas. I mean, where in comparison to like 2019, where even it's difficult for them to find a job for 5 years, and also they can't even get a mobile phone contract on their name without any hassle because of just being known as a yakuza. And this was actually quite a very it was touching, and it was actually really interesting because you see how a person who's made mistakes, he was put into circumstances which he only wanted to survive, and it also kind of shows how someone who never had control over his own circumstances was pushed into a situation such as being a part of a gang like the Yakuza, and trying to kind of then eventually repenting and finding redemption and trying to live a normal life. I mean, there are some moments of violence in this film, but it does have a very grim, gritty feeling. But that just doesn't really kind of take away from the story of the film. There is some moments of melodrama. There are some moments of actual genuinely heartfelt, realistic kind of emotions on display. And it just helps from like the strong direction, and also the the really, the very powerful performances from all the cast. They just worked absolutely amazing. And not very often that these kind of films do come along, especially when we're living in a time where it is franchises and world building and comic book adaptations. That's all that seems to be coming out these days. But then a film like this comes from like Japan, and then sometimes you get films like Parasite that come from Korea. It just shows that there's some great compelling stories out there, and a lot of great talent that are willing to kind of share these stories with us. I would give this film, I mean, the pacing was pretty good. I mean, I think the second act was maybe slightly stretched out a bit, but it didn't really take away from much of the film. But my rating of this film, I would say, is, I'd say 4.5 stars. Definitely a brilliant film. Such a great movie. Great performances, great direction, great cinematography, and just, I would urge you, if you have Netflix, just watch this movie. It's kind of like, it's under the whole Netflix banner, so it's going to be on there indefinitely. I would say definitely. It's called A Family, and yeah, that was my review of this movie. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also follow me on Instagram. Thank you.